Hello friends, heya folks, welcome again to another painting stream. Hi there, I'm Andrew, and in the internet I go under the moniker of Thanatos, as you can plainly see, and this is my painting stream, which I have been doing now for a little bit more than a week, so it feels like forever, right? We've gotten so much done. We've painted a whole bunch of little WarCry Terrain pieces, and now we've started in on some of the much larger WarCry Terrain pieces. And I am so incredibly thankful to everybody who is offering me encouragement and hanging out with me in chat and making this whole thing possible, because this is amazing. Like, for example, right down there, we are 5 follows away from meeting our April goal already. Today is April 6th. And we're only 5 followers away from meeting our April goal. I may have to increase that goal. Would certainly make me happy if I had to. We'll see what happens with that. And we've done a whole bunch of painting in the past week. We've gotten a whole bunch of these little small WarCry Terrain pieces done. These are the sort of, let's go to overhead cam. There we go. These are the small walls and stuff from WarCry that we have painted up, and I'm pretty happy with them. Happy enough that I think I can safely say, done, right? These are completed. There are things I could do to perhaps make them pop a little bit more, but we're going to move forward, never back. So now we're working on some of the much larger terrain pieces, and it's a challenge for me. This is part of why I'm doing these streams, is that it is a challenge for me to do these large pieces. I am not a fast painter, and I tend to get hung up on small details, and this is definitely good practice for me to get stuff done in a more timely manner. So I'm just going to dive right in on it. When I ended my stream yesterday, we were using this Vallejo flat earth to paint up the steps and platform on this piece. And I want to finish that quickly so that we can move on to some of the finer details, some of the other stuff that's in this model. We're going to try and do some skulls today. We're going to do a little bit of detail work on that stone head, and we're going to work on these pillars that are lying on the ground here. These pillars down here underneath the head. I don't know how well you can see that on overhead cam, but yeah, there are some fun details to work on. And for these large flat areas, I am using a Army Painter Wargamer Regiment brush, which has got a nice big head. It's definitely a larger surface area than I am used to working with. So I'm trying to work on my speed, trying to work on not getting hung up on detail, and applying paint to the model as quickly as I am capable of doing, because my goal for this week is to complete 2 pieces of large WarCry Terrain. There are 6 pieces of large terrain in the starter box that I'm painting up. This is the 2020 WarCry starter box, which we opened at my store prior to the pandemic, or prior to lockdown. Probably about March of last year, maybe February, right around PAX East of last year. And Serena, one of the employees at the store, built a bunch of pieces, including this one, and did some learn to play demos in the store, and then they sat as gray unpainted plastic for a year. And I want to ungrayify them. I want to have store demos that are a little more visually appealing. So I'm working on getting all the store demos painted. Off stream, at the end of last year, I worked on the Underworld store demo. We have last year's Underworld release painted up and playable in the store as a demo. And I'm extremely pleased with how those pieces came out. Again, I was doing it whenever I had time to do a little bit of painting, so maybe a couple hours a week, and as a result it took me quite a long time to get the figures for that demo painted up. But now that I'm painting on a pretty much daily basis, I have so far this month missed one day because it was a Sunday and I had other stuff going on. Or I'm sorry, Saturday, and I was working, so I couldn't be painting. So yeah, I have painted Sunday through Friday for the last 2 weeks, and it's astonishing how much you can get done when you paint every day. At least it's more than I'm used to getting done. But then, this is a very ambitious project for me. I'm a very slow painter and have not done a lot of painting. Like I've got some Tau that I've painted up because that's the army that I play. I put together and painted a kill team fire squad of Tau and a couple other Tau pieces just for the Abington kill team that we ran prior to the pandemic. And it took me forever to paint up even that small amount of Warhammer stuff. So taking on this demo, it's got probably about 30 figures to paint, of which I've got 8 base coated so far. It's got 6 large terrain pieces and a number of small terrain pieces. I've done a bunch of the small terrain pieces because we worked on that last week, so we're good with that. Like I said, I've got a start on the figures, which I did not on stream, but on my own personal time. But it's going to take me, even painting a couple hours a day, it's going to take me a couple of months to finish everything in this. Yesterday, while I was working on this, I did some quick estimation, and if I'm able to complete 2 large pieces a week, I will be finished with the terrain for the WarCry demo by the end of April. So that gives you an idea of the speed at which I can work and the scale of this project. It is not a small undertaking. But that's why I'm doing it on stream, because having folks in chat encouraging me and even just keeping me company makes it a lot easier to get stuff done. Gives me a reason to sit down at my desk and get some painting done each day. And I'm not great at self-motivation and getting things done on my own. So it's really been nice to have you folks in chat to keep me going. I should be able to finish. Well, I don't know about finish, but I should be able to get most of the base coat done for this piece by the end of today's stream. It took me 3 hours of painting to get to where I was this morning, which is to say, all of the wooden stakes on this piece done, all of these, and some of the boards and platform pieces done. And that took me about 3 hours yesterday. So it gives me a benchmark to work from. This is much faster than working on those stakes, working on these boards, because it's just wide open flat space, and I'm less concerned with edges and not getting paint where I don't want it. And so far, I know I'm going to have to deal with the underside of this platform, but so far I haven't had to contort myself to get the brush to go where I want it to go. Yesterday it was quite a challenge, because the inside of these is hard to paint just because the brush was intersecting with the opposite side. But yeah, try and get some work done today. Trying to catch all those little nooks and crannies. I said I was a little too detail oriented perhaps, and this is definitely something that makes it hard to do large pieces of terrain like this, is that I see something that might not be visible to anybody but myself, and only visible to me because I'm spending a lot of time like with the model right in front of my face. But I can't just let it go. If there's something that needs my attention, I have to get in there and fix it. And with a piece like this that was pre-assembled before I started painting it, because like I said, Serena built these last year, it can be tricky to hit some of those areas. The insides and undersides particularly are giving me a lot of trouble. Which is fine. I'll get them somehow. Rebuilding my little... I've got the very, very last of my oak brown Vallejo, or Army Painter, propped up between other bottles of paint so that I can extract the very last of the paint from it. So we are going to finish off that bottle this week. We'll probably finish it off today if I do any work on any pieces besides this one. should have the tops of all of these boards done. And I really do like this sculpt. Look at all the wood grain and knots that are sculpted in here. I love that there is no piece of Games Workshop sculpt that is not done to extreme detail. Like, they have a level of detail that all their pieces adhere to. These boards don't need to be this detailed. They're just a platform for models to stand on. But the sculptor went there, and it's my goal as a painter to make sure that those details of the sculpt are visible to players in the store. I've said it before on this stream, well, not today, but on previous days, but it's my feeling that I really should get this terrain done because it's useful to have as much terrain as possible in the store for larger events and to provide variety to players. So I'm trying to get all this terrain done, just so that there's something for folks to play with that they're not used to. There's pieces of terrain that have been at the store since I started working there, and everybody knows those pieces of terrain. I'll try and get a little bit here between these logs. Good, yeah, fine. Perfect. I don't even know who built some of the stuff that's in the store. I think some of it was probably Nick, who's one of the previous employees. Possibly Chase. Possibly Derek. Though, for some reason I can't imagine Derek, the store owner, spending hours on terrain. This is not his jam. I have seen him at Painting Socials working on D&D minis, trolls and stuff for his D&D games. But I can't picture him doing this. But we've had a lot of very dedicated regulars at the store that definitely could have worked on some of that older terrain. The classic Warhammer terrain that's been there since like 4th edition. See if I can find out who did that stuff. Credit where credit is due. I appreciate the effort that has been put into getting stuff done for the store by previous generations of painters. The store having been open for about 20 years now. A lot of painters over the years who have done stuff for us. Painters and sculptors. I know a lot of the terrain in the store, the newer terrain from the last couple of years, was done by Allie, who's one of our regulars and also was an employee for a while in the Abington location. And she spent a lot of time working on terrain, which is great because we needed it. Getting paint everywhere, that's good. Right? That's our goal. Finish with these boards. We can move on to skulls. We've got a lot of skulls to do. We can move on to masonry. We've got a lot of masonry to do at the base of this thing. I mentioned yesterday on stream that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the big stone head here initially. I've primed the whole model in gray, and I'm going to keep that gray. So I don't need to do a lot of extra painting on it. You can see there's a couple of areas where I've leapt some brown onto it, and I'll touch those up. Oh, excuse me. But for the most part, I can leave it as it is. I'm going to add some highlights and detail to it. But for the most part, I can leave it as it is and just let the wash bring out all the cool detail in the model. Do a wash on Friday. Finishing Friday. I doubt I'm going to actually finish either of the big pieces of terrain that I'm working on this week, but I want to get the base coats done and get a wash on. Maybe I'll have time during Friday's stream to finish up the finer detail on these. For me, 2 large pieces of terrain is quite ambitious. Quite ambitious enough that I may not have time to completely finish them on Friday. I may do a bonus stream on Sunday. I've officially scheduled this painting stream to go on Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. But obviously it's hard. I don't want to stop painting in the middle of something. So I've gone past the noon mark a few times. And I've done some streams on Sundays. 2 Sunday streams. It's not part of the official schedule for this stream, but it gives me an opportunity to get a little extra painting done in the week. This past Sunday I only streamed for 1 hour, and that was just getting some finishing details on a couple of the small WarCry Terrain bits that we just showed off. Hydrate a little. Always good for a coffee. Yeah. In progress. Just a couple more planks to do on the top here, and then we'll see what we can get on the underside. Go to about 11 o'clock and see how much underside we can actually hit with our brush. And then we'll move on to some other details, because I don't want to get too hung up on the underside. On the wall pieces of terrain for this WarCry demo, there are places where the sculpt of the underside is incomplete. And I'll show that off when we get to those next week. But that sort of gives me permission from the sculptor to say, well, maybe the undersides don't require as much attention. Yesterday we had a friend of the stream, Novocaine for the Souls, in chat, and he was somewhat flabbergasted that I was doing this without an airbrush. Definitely an airbrush would make some of these areas much faster. It would only take me a couple of minutes to go right down the middle here. Paint would get where I didn't want it, which is fine when you're working on this scale, I suspect. But then I could touch up the edges with a brush, which is get paint on the model a lot faster. So maybe that's something I'll invest in later if this stream continues to be a thing. Could always use an airbrush. I mentioned that there was a Kickstarter, I think I may have missed it by now, by Stuart Semple for a handheld airbrush that uses compressed air canisters. Just as a very quick way to apply some paint. And the advantage to having something like that on stream would be that I wouldn't have to speak over the sound of an airbrush or airbrush compressor, because those things make a fair racket, I will say. I remember sometimes when Allie was painting terrain in the store while we were streaming on Thursday nights or Friday nights, and you could definitely, there was a lot of noise from her compressor coming from downstairs. I was like, what is she doing with power tools? Oh, right. Ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. Jen, hello. Good morning. No, it's cool. Thank you for joining me. It's good to see you again. I appreciate having you here. So Jen, we've started work on some of the larger terrain pieces since you were last in chat. And yeah, they are a bit of a challenge for me because they are rather big. Oh, and Ty, greetings. So yeah, compare this, which I'm working on right now, in scale, to this. This was the largest piece that I painted last week. This is what I'm painting this week. Meh. Little more area to cover. But we're making progress. Yeah, this is that Planet of the Apes platform. Jen named this the Planet of the Apes platform. She was like, oh, that looks like something from Planet of the Apes. And she's not wrong. Definitely WarCry in its flavor has a lot of new world built on the rubble of the old world. And this is a great example of that. There's this giant stone head, which is something from a prior age. And this platform has just been built atop it. Trying to get a little bit between these boards here right now, having finished getting paint on the top of them for the most part. And then we're going to flip this over, and we're going to see, it's going to be a challenge, but we're going to see if I can get some paint on the underside. It may not happen. It may be that it's just too hard to get the brush there. But I'd like to try. Right now. So I don't know, my policy is if I can see it, it should be painted, and that doesn't always work. Because there are areas here I can see that I can't get the brush to. But the underside is less of a priority, I think. You folks will note I'm using a much larger brush tip today than my usual. And that's because I'm trying to get larger areas of paint done. There we go. Okay. Well, there's a lot less gray on this than there was when I started today. I'm pretty happy with that. So now let's look at the underside. Look at all that gray. So let's just, as quickly as we can, try and cover some of that up. Kind of wish, and this is something to keep in mind for future me, that I had been around to get some paint on this model prior to it getting assembled. It would make it a lot easier to paint these underneath and behind areas if the model wasn't already fully built. But Serena built these in an afternoon, and she did a good job considering it was just an afternoon's worth of work. But she wanted to have the demo ready to play, and she did do some playing with it. She did do some learn to play games and figured out the rules and stuff very shortly after we had received it. So that was good. If you had waited until I was done painting it, as we know now, it would have been a couple of months before anybody would have been able to play with it, and that's not terribly fair. So yeah, it's good that she did what she did. Just makes it more challenging for me now. In the future, if we do other store demos with large pieces, and you folks will remind me about this, I'm sure. But in the future, it would probably be a good idea to paint the pieces on the sprue and then assemble. So for the next big store demo piece that I build, which probably won't be until June or so, Let's try and remember that. Let's try and remember to paint the pieces of terrain prior to building it. Not treating this brush well. I should be definitely washing it more frequently. I'm going to get paint down into the brush head, and that's not good for it. It's a delicate balancing act, trying to match speed with good brush maintenance. The wood grain in the mold here, as it gives me a quick reference to which way to move my brush. Obviously I don't want to be painting against the grain, it's just a losing battle. Painting with the grain makes things nice and quick. Let's do the underside of all these steps here. I don't know how frequently people are going to be flipping the model over on the table. Probably very infrequently indeed. So I don't need to be terribly concerned with the underside. But I'd like to have as little just unpainted gray visible as possible. And if the sculptor went through the bother of putting these details in, I feel it behooves me to at least honor their work by getting some paint in there. You know what I should do? I should spend some time doing some research and find out who the sculptors are for these pieces so that I can thank them as I'm working. I don't think they get a lot of personal credit for the fine work that they do. As a Magic the Gathering fan, you get so you see pieces of artwork and you're like, oh, that's a Seb McKinnon piece, or that's a Rebecca Guay piece. They are familiar artists and they have a style. And you see the artwork and you know who did it, and it's easy to acknowledge their artistry. But, you know, I'm doing all this work and seeing all these details. I'd like to say, oh, I know who did that, and thank them for doing such a fine job putting these details in there. Because let's face it, painting is nothing compared to the Herculean effort that has already gone into the creation for these pieces. I am in constant awe of the sculptors who do this work, because not only do they have to have that artistic talent, the ability to, through sculpting, create these details and create this world, but the medium that they work in, because these pieces are all going to have to be molded and printed on a sprue, they have to think about what side is going to have the detail, because that's the side that is going to be facing the mold, so to speak. The edges have less detail because of how the mold has to open and close. They have to think about how do you take advantage of all the space in the sprue. Like, you look at these pieces when they're on the sprue, when they're freshly molded and before you snip them off and start constructing them, and there is no space wasted. I suspect that's part of the reason that we have these cute little tiny terrain pieces, is that there was void in the sprue, and they were like, oh, let's sculpt something to go there, I guess. But it's an incredible talent. Just, it boggles my mind. What I'm doing is a hobby. You know, this is easy. Time consuming, and I do get to, I have a little bit of artistic license in that I get to choose the color schemes, and I can choose how I'm going to do the finishing. But really, I'm on the shoulders of giants here, because so much of the work has already been done before I even start. So, a huge thank you to the artists and sculptors at Games Workshop. This is just, like I said, it's astonishing. Just glopping the paint on right now because I'm definitely into nobody's going to look at this territory. Almost done with these steps. Nice. goal was to get these steps completed by 11 o'clock, and it is almost 11 o'clock now. I probably have another 10 minutes of work to do here, so not bad considering I started a little bit late. I want to get these skulls done today. Noticing little details that I hadn't hit with a brush yet. Oh. Considerably more paint on the model than I normally would, just because, as I said, we are in nobody will ever see this territory. I'll know if it's not done, but not many people are going to turn this model upside down. So it doesn't have to be spectacular. It has to be adequate. Here's our first cat hair of the day there. Got it. I wonder if I still have the instruction sheets for the assembly of these pieces. I'll bet if I were producing this, that's where I would put the artist's name. But there maybe there's a wiki that has the artist's names listed and who worked on what. I hope that information is available somewhere. Sides of these steps, and this is getting into that I can't get the brush there territory. Gets tricksy here. Passable. this. Almost there. Almost there. On these steps and on the platform. Some of these areas that I can't quite get to, I may be able to address with a wash, because that's not terribly precise and can get into some of these cracks and crevices. I'm probably going to be quite liberal when I get to the wash. I want to get all these little surfaces. All right, let's see if we can get in there, and there, and then we'll call the platforms done. Need more paint. That's one thing about painting large pieces. You go through a lot of paint. There. You folks probably cannot even see what I'm trying to do, because these are hard enough areas to get the brush to. I doubt the camera is picking them up. Okay, so that's good. Then we can work on some skulls. That'll make me feel good. Some of these areas would be easier for me to reach if I were painting right-handed, but I am left-handed. Poor brush. I'm abusing it so badly. I'm sorry, brush. So hey chat, yesterday my wife and I put a down payment on a car. So I may have a new car by the end of the week. And won't that be exciting? my current car has been dying since before I started working at Battleground, it feels like. So at least 5 years of slow decay. The carburetor died, and a couple of the cylinders no longer fire. So it has about 2 horsepower, 2 working cylinders. Can't go over 40 miles an hour, and even then, sometimes I have to stand on the accelerator to get it up to 40 miles an hour. So it's going to be a pretty radical difference for me to have a working car. And a car without emissions issues. I've been very upset that my car is... It doesn't belch black smoke or anything like that, but it is terribly, terribly inefficient. Gets awful, awful mileage. And sometimes, when I'm trying to get going after a red light, and the car just sort of very slowly accelerates, I feel bad for people who get stuck behind me, who are just trying to get where they're trying to get. And they're stuck behind this person with a busted-ass car. So it's going to be nice to have a car that works. All right. Hey, okay. I think that is as much of that as I can do. I've gotten paint in all these little nooks and crannies that I can reach with the brush. It's not 100% perfect, but it was never gonna be. I'm gonna call that done for that area. Cool. Progress. Now, I have a little bit of paint left over. This is what we're painting with the leftover paint. It's just one of the bits that's used as a walkway when you're laying out the terrain, a bridge. I'm just gonna use up some of this leftover paint here on this little piece. And then we'll do some skulls. Always fun. There's a lot of skulls on this model. No skeletons on this one, though. And then I think we'll do some of the masonry that we're doing in that sort of marbled texture. So we'll work on that today. This brush is not great at fine detail and edges, but that's not what it's here for. This brush is for getting paint on as wide an area as quickly as possible. two of these pieces. But these, I don't think these are going to take a terribly long time to get done. They don't have many fine details to speak of. So they just require a little quick paint here, wash, and they'll be pretty much table ready. The only downside to these particular platform pieces, these bridges, is that I have to do both sides. And I can't do them both at the same time because I have to lay it down to dry. Let's see, there's one more board. Do I have enough leftover paint here to get that? I should probably bring the completed pieces of WarCry Terrain into the store so that folks can use them now. I know there are people who are playing WarCry in Abington as part of our Sigmar Sundays. And I feel a little guilty that I've stolen all their terrain and brought it to my lair here. So they don't have their terrain available to play with right now. Cool. Progress on that piece. Leaving no paint unused. Excellent. That was quick and easy. This side not done, that side partially done. Alright, let's switch brushes. Have some coffee. Make sure I wash this brush sufficiently. There we go. We'll go back to my favorite brush. This is my Citadel small layer brush. As all of you who have been watching know, this is the brush I use 90% of the time. And we'll get our skeleton bone paint. And we'll do all these little skulls. There's a whole bunch of them. Remember, this is the paint that's all gloppy if I don't agitate it sufficiently. Need a new palette soon. add some water to that. So yesterday when I was painting, we discovered that this model has these spikes. And I don't know how to paint those. There's no hint in the model as to what those are. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do them as if they're metal spikes driven into the wood. We'll do them in a metallic paint. This paint is going on a little gloppy, but that's fine. Do a second coat. See brush strokes in the paint, but that's, you know, it's okay. When I do a second coat on these, I can obscure that. And of course the wash does some work on them as well. Some leftover paint from this, which I'll use on the skeletons on the other large terrain piece we're working on this week. Because I got way too much paint for such tiny skulls. As I've gotten used to getting out huge amounts of paint because I've been doing huge surface area. Gotta get used again to getting just enough paint for the smaller details that I'm trying to do. Man, I'm excited about getting a new car. My current car, I've been pretty convinced for ages that it's just going to break down someday on the way to work. It could still happen. I have to make it last until Friday. Friday, hopefully, is when we're going to go pick up the new car. Well, I say new. It's a used car. It's got 50,000 on it. 50,000 miles. But that's a lot better than the 100K on my current car. And the new car, we took a test drive yesterday. It seems to be in good shape. Checked its history. Did a Carfax on it. And it seems to be in significantly better shape than my current poor old clunker. It's about 5 years newer, too. The car I'm driving right now is a 2008, and the new car is a 2013 or 2014. So yeah, that's good. Do a quick patch job on these folks. Looking pretty good. There are a lot of skulls on this bulwark. I dreamed last night that I was DMing a Star Wars role-playing game, and that through a combination of bad dice rolls and just ridiculously stupid play, my characters had managed to break the narrative of the game completely. Like, there was an NPC who was there to help them escape from prison, and in my dream, the NPC was an Ugnaught, and was obviously speaking in Ugnaught tongue, sort of all grunts and squeals. And in my dream, the character with the highest charisma attempted to communicate with the Ugnaught that was trying to help them, and misunderstood it completely because she rolled all ones. So, as the DM, I had her misinterpret the Ugnaught as intending to murder them instead of help them. So the party killed them. Keep in mind, this is a dream. This is not something that actually happened. This is me dreaming about RPGing, about running a game and having my players go completely off the rails and murder everybody that's trying to help them. I don't know what this dream says about me, or about the people that I roleplay with. I think it says, I wish I was doing more DMing. My next big DMing thing, I believe, is going to be a game of the Alien role-playing game. Because I've been reading through the instructions for that, and I really enjoy the world, and I want to run something in it. But it's going to take me a while to coordinate that. copy. That's fine. I should thin it a little bit. I'm so lazy. Let's get a little water in the paint there. After doing all of the large scale stuff, to be back to doing smaller scale stuff now. Some finer detail. Yes, we're back to coffee paint water. That's what happens when you do a lot of browns. I'll try not to drink it. I suspect it doesn't taste as good as my actual coffee. Not to inadvertently hold the model on the skulls that I've just painted. While I was painting yesterday, I was constantly discovering fingerprints in the paint. It's because I was going fast. I was trying to cover as large an area as possible, as quickly as possible. And as I was rotating the model, I was often gripping it by areas I had just painted. So many skulls. Fronts of skulls to do. It's backs of skulls and quick touch up. Skulls. Do some metallics. Do those spikes. Do these two little plates here. That'll be quick and easy. One more. Definitely have some leftover paint here, so we'll get some paint on the other model that we're working on this week, which I'll be doing a lot more work on tomorrow. Trying to get 2 large terrain pieces done this week. I don't know if I can accomplish it, but it's good to have goals. Alright, let's get the backs of all these skulls. Go. It's a little trickier just because of the angle that I'm working at here. Water. Should drink some coffee. Ah, that's good. Slightly cold at this hour, but it's no good. I've got about 20 minutes left in this stream. Let's see how much more I can get done in 20 minutes. In terms of little details. I think I'm going to finish the entire base coat for this piece today. We've got a lot of surface area covered, but there are several little details that I want to be able to get to. I don't think we're going to hit in 20 minutes. Feel like I may need to do some bonus streams if I really want to finish 2 large pieces of terrain a week. I don't know if I can do it in the time that I've currently got myself allotted. I might go a little bit longer on Thursday, because Thursday's my day off. I can definitely do more painting. Do some bread making on Thursday as well, because that's something I've been doing and I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of. Won't do that on stream though. Not terribly good streaming material, unfortunately. Bread making involves a lot of, sitting around while bread rises. But on Thursday I may, instead of doing a 2-hour stream, do a 3 or 4-hour stream. Or I may do multiple streams. I may do a morning stream and then come back and do another stream in the afternoon. That's more likely, frankly. I can work on finishing the base coats on these two large pieces of terrain so that on finishing Friday, I can do washes and maybe some touch-ups. A little water. Mix that in here. Just want to get a quick second coat, cover up some of these brush strokes. Wonderful. Okay. Backs of skulls. Very quickly. Just a couple quick brush strokes for each one to cover some of this up. I wish I had more time. Time is always a factor in this. I have to make some lunch. I have to go to work, my actual day job, go to Battleground. All right, skulls done. I've got a lot of extra paint here. I've only got, well, it's 11:42. Okay, I've got 18 minutes. Let's quickly do a little work on these skeletons here with all this leftover paint that I've got. This is the other large terrain piece that I want to get done this week. One with the bell the stairs. We'll hopefully have some time to get some work done on this starting tomorrow. But as long as I've got some leftover skeleton bone paint out on my palette, I might as well get some work done on these dudes, or dudettes, or these unfortunate folks left to rot in cages here. I kind of assume, especially with these locked coffin-like cages that are on the sides, you can see it's got little locks here. Kind of assume these skeletons were living folks when they were put here. And they've since become less alive and been pecked at by ravens or something and become skeletonized. Ravens, of course, being well known for being the piranhas of the Aven world, right? How quickly can ravens skeletonize a corpse? Up this paint as long as I've got it out. Worry about this piece. It's held in place by a very tenuous little bit there. And I don't want it to snap and fall off. You know what? That looks like it's a bone there. Nah. We'll skip that. Okay. Backsides. No! Didn't mean to get paint there. It's fine. Everything's fine. Pretty much used up this paint for now. So we'll call that done for these skeletons. Obviously get more work on those tomorrow, because that is my goal tomorrow, is to work on this piece. Get some work done on this one. But in the meantime, got a little more done. Used up that extra paint that I had. And I can go back and do some more detail work on the giant head. He definitely needs more work. And that was, I put a little water in the paint to thin it, and it was way too much. It's a delicate balancing act. I don't like watery paint because it's hard to work with. That's alright. I can do a second coat on this later. Alright. Well, paint on plastic. Got a little more done there. Now, I want to do some fun stuff in the last 5 minutes of this stream, 9 minutes. Let's get out this is WizKids Goblin Green. It's one of the tiny paints that I got in my enormous WizKids painting starter set. I'm going to use that on the eyes of this. Just a playful little detail there that I think will make this model pop a little bit. I like how that looks. I thought that would look cool. What do you guys think? Looks nifty. Okay, and then I get some gunmetal gray. There we are, gunmetal. This is a metallic. Doesn't take much. I'm going to use this for those mysterious spikes here. There's a number of these on the model. This is a great paint to work with. It gets very good coverage. It has a good shine to it. I said before, at some point I want to work on non-metallic metals on my models, but this is not what I'm doing with this one today. When we get to finishing, we're going to add some weathering and rust to these spikes. Should really make them come to life. Here we go. Get the back sides of these spikes. I like being able to do these little bits that start to move the model from just interesting to almost alive. It's in the fine details that the best pieces of the model exist. At least for me, it's the most fun in painting. Cool. Cool, cool. Oh, I'm going to do these in metal too. The struts have these plates on them. Do those like that quickly. Whoa, where'd that water come from? had water on the brush. It just got everywhere. It's fine. Big droplet of water just went down the brush and onto the model. I'll fix that later. No time today. Another one on the other side. And if I had another hour, I could make a lot more progress on this fella. But I got most of what I wanted to get done today done. Didn't quite get everything it was my intention to do. But I got a significant amount done. There. And on the head, do I have enough paint left to do this? I want to do this headband. This piece here. Subtle because it's silver against gray, but it'll be more apparent when we do the wash and the detailing. Come on, just a little more paint. I don't want to have to get out more paint to finish this. And I know it's 1 o'clock now. So I should be wrapping up. I want to do one more thing. Just one more thing. And then we'll call it done for the day. I'm going to go to my brass scorpion, which we've had a lot of fun with in the past. I'm going to do this crest in front of the statue. This shouldn't take too long. I just heard a cat toy out in the apartment. Our cat has this mousy with an electric chirp to it, and she carries it around the apartment, and it makes a ton of noise. It's hilarious. It's 12:05. I need to get some lunch and go to work. So I'm going to finish this, do one more detail in brass scorpion, in scorpion brass, and I'm going to say thank you so much to the folks who joined me today. Thank you for being a part of this stream. Your encouragement has been instrumental in getting me to get more paint on models. You have made it possible for me to get up in the morning and look forward to this. I look forward to this stream so much. On Saturday, when I had to go to work and couldn't be here to stream, I was definitely missing being able to spend time with you folks and get some paint on models. So thank you so much for being here to hang out with me. I'm really having a wonderful time, and I hope you folks are enjoying it too. I feel like this is something I can look forward to every day, is to get a little bit more painting done, and I know that I'm going to have folks hanging out and making it interesting. So thank you for joining me. I will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. and we'll get a little bit more work done on this head, probably. We didn't get everything done that I wanted to get done today, but we made some significant progress. Like I said, perhaps Thursday will be a longer stream. We will see when we get to Thursday, if I have the energy for it. Just doing this one last detail here. Which is kind of awkward because I'm trying to get my brush into an area that's not easy to get a brush into. will see you folks tomorrow. We'll get more painting done. We'll start some of the large-scale work. Oh, gracious. I just got some paint where I didn't want it. It's fine. Everything's fine. We'll start work tomorrow on some of the larger areas of the second large piece of terrain that we're working on. In the meantime, I'm going to wrap things up. Here's what we got done today. Pretty proud of it. It looks pretty good. Not too much left over to do on this piece. We need to do these pieces of stuff that are lying around the head. And we need to do these little ties. They're all going to be done in that burgundy red that we've got. But then it'll be time for touch-ups and a wash. So hey, pretty close on that. That looks good. It looks so good. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I had a terrific time as always. We made some good progress. We got some painting done. Cross your fingers for me that I'll be able to get this car that Amanda and I put a down payment on yesterday. Fingers crossed. My credit is not great, and I'm going to need to finance this thing. Hopefully, my credit is better than the last time I had to do this. So we'll see what happens with that. I've got a couple days before I hear back on the credit application. And we'll get some more painting done tomorrow. Hey, thanks again, everybody. Be excellent to each other and enjoy whatever art it is you choose to do. Bye, everybody.